Now let's go over the answers for the Unit 11 post-lesson assessment on the adult course. That is money market interest rates, how do the central banks set the interest rates, and bond yields. And so question 1, is the interest rate set more by the demand for money or the supply of money? Now if you'll recall, when we take a look at the interest rate to money supply curve, you can see the demand portion as opposed to the supply bars. And the government actually has the ability to set the supply of money. That's why they're vertical lines. It is easier to change the supply to have it affect the interest rates than to change the demand. The demand for money doesn't shift a whole lot unless the supply that the government puts out shifts. When the central banks change the money supply by either putting more into it or taking more out of it, it'll typically change the interest rate by altering the demand. So supply affects demand, demand then affects the interest rate. And so therefore the central banks set the interest rate by shifting the supply of money rather than the demand. If they print more money, they shift the curve towards lower interest rates. If they take money away and pull back on printing, they can increase the interest rate. So, how do you manipulate the supply of money? Well, I just basically said that. You either create more money through the central bank and toss it into circulation, or you basically suck in that money back to the central bank and, well, destroy it, thereby decreasing the supply of money and shifting the curve. Next question, what is a bond? So, I almost forgot. There's formal ways that you can manipulate the money supply. So you can alter certain things. Number one, you can alter the reserve requirement. That is the amount of money in the commercial banks that is required by law to be kept in the Federal Reserve. If you decrease the reserve requirement, you actually reduce the interest rate because you reduce the amount of money that commercial banks must keep at the Fed. If the commercial banks have more money with them, they can put that into the economy and the circulation. That increases the money supply and reduces the interest rate as the demand for money decreases because there's more supply out there. The second thing that you can do is you can change the discount rate or the repo rate, which is also called the bank rate. That is the rate at which commercial banks borrow from the Fed to meet their liquidity needs, meaning to stay liquid. If the Fed decreases the bank rate, it's easier for a commercial bank to borrow from the Fed. It's cheaper. So the commercial banks can more easily do it. That means they get more money supply, which goes out into the market. And of course, that decreases demand, thereby decreasing the interest rates. Or they can buy and sell bonds, which is called open market operation. In this situation, the central bank will either buy bonds or issue and sell bonds. If the Fed is buying the bonds, they replace the bonds with cash. That cash then goes into the outside market, thereby increasing the money supply, decreasing the demand, and thereby decreasing interest rates. When the Fed sells bonds, it does exactly the opposite. So what is a bond? A bond is an IOU. It essentially is a guarantee that you will be getting the value of the bond back as well as any regular interest payments per year. So why would anyone buy a bond? Well, generally speaking, bonds are relatively stable and they're safe products to buy. They're usually issued by governments in order to raise finances or corporations or other government agencies. Because these structures are very unlikely to go bankrupt, that makes bonds a relatively stable investment, and you may actually get a decent yield or a return on your investment better than other financial assets out there. Now, what are the components to a bond note? So a bond note will typically have the name of the treasury that issues it, the coupon, which is essentially the interest rate that is fixed over the duration based off of a nominal value of the bond annually. So that's a lot of gobbledygook, but essentially it's simple interest. It's simple interest per year that the bond pays you back. It has the maturity, the time at which point the bond must be paid back, and usually in terms of years, and you will get the nominal value of the bond back at the end of the maturity. And then last but not least, the market price. This is the current market price, not the nominal value, that the bond can be bought or sold at on a secondary market. It was bought and sold at the nominal value only on the primary market. So that actually then gets into the idea of what is the difference between a nominal value and the market price of a bond. So the nominal value is the true worth of the bond. When it was issued, what is it worth? The market price is what you actually buy it for on the secondary market. In other words, the price that the market sets for the bond. How are bonds market prices tied to their yield? Well, what's really important to the investor is the rate of return on their investment. Basically, how much money are they going to get per year by holding on to and keeping this bond until maturity. That is the coupon, if you will. To calculate that, you essentially, the yield percentage will equal the equation coupon divided by the market price times 100. You didn't buy this bond at the nominal price. You bought it at the market price. Therefore, the coupon percentage return that you're going to get is not the actual percentage of return that you're going to get. The coupon percentage is based off of the nominal value, which is not what you bought this bond for. So if you want to know what percentage of yield, interest if you will, you're going to get on this bond, you have to divide the coupon interest rate by the market price and multiply by 100. This means that as the price of a government bond goes up, the market price will typically increase. And therefore, the yield, the percentage yield, will go down because that market price was in the denominator. So usually a bond yield will start fairly high. As a result of this, lots of investors will buy the bond because they are going to get a great percent yield. This will thereby increase the market price, decreasing, it's increasing that denominator, so it's decreasing the percentage yield. And so over time, percentage yields begin to reflect the market interest rate. The older the bond is, the closer that bond will reflect the overall market interest rate. Similarly, if a bond yield starts very low, meaning that you're going to get a very low return on investment, very few investors are going to buy this bond. This means that the market price, the value of this bond in the market, is going to decrease. Well, when you do that, you decrease the denominator of the equation, thereby raising the percentage yield, making it more attractive for investors to buy the bond. Again, over time, the percentage yield begins to get closer and closer to the overall market interest rate.